the hardest part is what happened in 2020, because that was really a complete reminder that we are still exactly where we were 50 years ago, 40 years ago. I mean, one of the reasons I made this film, it's basically to create this discussion, because as you know, in Lebanon, our history books don't address any of the war. Nobody wants to talk about it. Our parents didn't talk to us about it because it's hush-hush, right? Because you're not supposed to talk about the bad things and the polemic things. And I just felt like I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do this delicately in a way that someone understands it and experiences it. So the film really grounds itself in a naturalism that is unusual, and that's pretty, I mean, I'm asking the audience to kind of stay with me here, live this moment with me, experience this moment with me. And it's fascinating how universal it is, because what's people who were like people who watch the film sometimes tie this film into other battles that they've experienced, and they see the similarities of it. Like for people in the US, for example, when they see this film, those who are in New York, immediately takes them back to 9/11. In Lebanon, it takes them back to 2006, you know? And for some people, it's like, I mean, the hardest part is what happened in 2020, because that was really a complete reminder that we are still exactly where we were 50 years ago, 40 years ago. So I think the film sort of transcends time in that regard, and I wanted it to create curiosity. And I know that this curiosity happened with my nieces and nephews, because they watched the film, they went home, and it's like the conversations with the parents. It's like, what happened? Like, why is, because it's not in our history books. And unfortunately, it's policy that it's not in our history books. You know what I mean? Because the suppression of history is actually because everybody's fighting about which history they want to write, and which side of the story they want to write. And I'm like, okay, let me step outside of the fight about who's going to write this history. Let me write it from my experience as a human being in Lebanon, and I don't care whose side I'm on. And this for me was very important, because this, when you do that, you kind of liberate yourself from the polemics, and you liberate yourself from the biases. And as kids, we didn't have biases. We didn't care. You know, like biases are sort of like contaminations that kind of we start to acquire from the world around us, from these conversations. And I wanted, with 1982, it was very important for me to present a moment in time that will make people ask questions, that will make people go revisit that moment, that will make people like talk to their parents about, you know. And it's doing that not only in Lebanon, it's doing that in most of the expat communities around the US and Canada, where the film is playing. Like, I get messages from people, from parents. They're like, thank you for this film, because we took our kids and the conversations, we stayed up all night talking. For me, this is why we make these films, you know, so that we remember and not let it happen again. And unfortunately, I mean, I know not many people, unless you have Netflix, nobody can see this. Not many people can see this film in Lebanon, which is to me a bit heartbreaking. I love that it's on Netflix, but the theatrical experience of this film that's being experienced everywhere in the world has never been seen and experienced in Lebanon. It's just like, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about the past, because right now we're exactly where we were 40 years ago, because we refuse to talk about it.